and product, and also product competitiveness, and that's always driven by design. That's the starting point for any product. So, you know, the whole investment here, the $1.5 million, was basically to improve the facility and the resources that we have in the UK studio. And the USP, as I mentioned before, for the UK is basically being in an area where there's real creativity. I mean, the UK is very much a cultural center, not only for the MG brand, but design in general. So for us being here, that really gives the company a global overview. The products that we sell, you know, even though they're primarily sold in China, we now sell in 42 countries. But justify the investment, and that justification should be represented in the design quality that we produce.
Well, basically we have to look at the target customer, we look at the location of market. So the fact that Roewe is purely for China really shapes the target customer. MG is our global brand. It has a long heritage of certain types of products and also British culture. So to a very large degree the brand values are quite different, and also our products don't have a huge amount of crossover either. So we have platform engineering, but we'll do different body styles, different brands, etc., etc. We believe that defining a design through styling and through character and through technology and through progression is a very important aspect. So it goes back to this standing out. We believe that an MG customer will want to make a bit of a statement, so they would appreciate some of the progressive and sporty dynamic of an MG product, basically. So that's why we've got this kind of more dynamic feel to a mainstream product, let's say. But the difference between, say, an SUV and a sedan car is that we can have a little bit more fun. We can say stronger things, basically, which then can filter down into our mainstream programs as well.
We want to have a portfolio of products that complement each other, you know, offer something different to different demographics. Both are sold next to each other in China. MG products are obviously sold globally, but both have to be competitive products, you know, in terms of design quality, and generally understand the brief, you understand the brand of the product. Does that transfer into the exterior design, into the interior design, and then of course right down to the last detail, whether it's the lamps, the grille, you know, tactility on the interior, materials, graining, all of that. And that has to be consistent. That message, that brand message, has to be applied to every dimension and every level of design. It's like an onion. You keep peeling it.
Customer with a focus on technology, kind of warm feel. If you're familiar with Roewe 550, quite a warm overall design direction, and then the sporty and the British heritage coming into MG, more kind of digital, a little bit more direct, a little bit more sporty is the differentiation between the brands, basically.
I really want this studio and SAIC design in general to really be actually a leader in design, where, you know, our contemporaries and our colleagues in other companies are basically looking to us of what we're always doing next. So, I mean, it's a long-term project, and it's a culture you have to build, you know, in terms of a design organization. So now we've invested sort of this last year has been, you know, building the base, the foundation, and, you know, we have a foundation in terms of a portfolio of products, The next step now that we're going to start designing the next generation of products is actually bring this sort of culture and almost a religion into both brands. And that should seep through all the people in the design organization, you know, the designers, the clay modelers, the digital, everybody has to be sort of almost seeped into this methodology. And that's the sort of long-term goal. I mean, there's no substitute for pure design. I mean, and ultimately that's what I want associated with these two brands, is, you know, not only timeless, good design, but also sort of almost leaders in design. If you look at the core values of what MG is, you know, it's an effortless, stress-free, accessible brand. And I think this really fits into just the sort of also car design trend that we have right now, which is, you know, people have their phone, they put the picture of their girlfriend, their kids, the dog, you know, they make their products, their day-to-day products, you know, their own. We need to apply that sort of philosophy to a car. And the MG3 is a perfect example of that. It's a t-shirt. You can pretty much put any saying on the t-shirt, and, you know, it might be just the thing you want to say that day, or it might be, you know, your sort of life philosophy. But in general, I think it's a perfect product as that palette.
There's actually a big following in China for MG already. So there's car owners clubs, and there's very regular meets with, say, MG6s and whatever other product is there. So there's that very tribal aspect. It's already in place for MG. It's a brand people love. It's a brand people are becoming familiar with, and it's progressive in its thinking. It's very youthful as well. So we have to deal with all those aspects. What I believe MG needs to do is focus on high design value. So it needs to stand out. It needs to be its own character. And the trick is to make sure that that character is appropriate for its markets. And we believe that the kind of British feel of the brand is actually steeped in the fact that British products tend to be quite exclusive, tend to be quite high-end. So we want to focus on that aspect because we believe it can give the customer a really strong message about our product.
We did a lot of internal brainstorming about the brands, and we did a lot of cultural research about what is Britain, what is British design as a whole, but what is British design from a car point of view, the history of MG, the highs, lows, you know, the company's reinvented itself, I mean, endless times. And, you know, we did these sort of workshops, and a lot of it is just cultural insight. And this idea of this sort of personalization and these cultural graphics. You could see, you know, when a car was designed in the 1950s, it was, you know, hammered out by hand, and, you know, the surfaces reflected that craftsmanship. And then, you know, you had a manufacturing process that reflected that in, say, the 80s and 90s. And I think now, you know, that design process, you know, we've gone from gouache to, from, I'd say, gouache to Canson to, you know, vellum to Photoshop. You can't help but see, you know, that it has had an effect on you know, the aesthetic. And, you know, I'm sure that's going to change, you know, in the next 10 years with the next generation. So I definitely would like to see that, you know, sort of influence design. But it's got to be timeless. You know, good design is good design. It doesn't matter, you know, how you do it. It still has to have, you know, proportion, balance, you know, sensitivity and all that.
I would say that there's very definitely a trend towards very sharp edges, particularly the VW products that are out there at the moment through technology. And I think some companies will probably follow that direction. I also believe that there'll be a reaction to that, and there'll also be cars with a little bit more emotion, even more emotive effectively. If you look at where Lexus are going as an example, they're very definitely not as rigid as a VW. So I think there's much more of a kind of a divergence of trend, if I'm honest. Which way we go, we're kind of currently investigating. So, so very interesting time actually, because VW everyone looks at, but obviously that takes you in a certain direction. So. I would say show your passion, actually. I would say that it's important to believe in what you do, to learn from those around you in technique, how to communicate, because the fundamental point of being a successful designer is getting your point across, but at some point it will become guided by others. So I would say listen to others, ensure you do your best and work as hard as you possibly can.
Ambition, never give up. You know, people who are into this, you know, are into cars, into design, and you know, it's a pure passion and application. So you never give up, and also never compromise your ideals. You know, fight for what you believe in, and you know, you might lose a couple of battles, but ultimately you'll not lose your you know, credibility. And you know, you need to be passionate to you know, push through anything you want. So yeah, definitely, and it's a great job. I mean, can't beat it.